Do good, clean, well-intentioned merchants get put on Match?
That's like the majority of the placements, to be honest
All
with
the
you.
time. All the time, David.
It's just, and I'm actually gonna kind of clarify a comment you made earlier. The match list is not a list of merchants that processors don't want to work with. They're just so afraid of getting on MasterCard's bad side that they're doing it out of necessity.
Hello, David here with another episode of the podcast. Today we're going to be talking about the match list, which is a terrible thing. Hopefully you're not watching this because you're on it. Now, it's human to want some recognition for your hard work. You might want to be nominated for a business award. You might want to be included on a list of prestigious people. Well, Match is not that list. Match is a blacklist of people who processors do not want to work with. It's a big problem if you're on the Match list because it's notoriously hard, if not impossible, to get off it. So Match is not something that I have a lot of experience with, but the people I've invited on the podcast today too. I'm speaking with Bryce Vandermoor and Jeremy Stock from Global Legal Law Firm. Global Legal has a tremendous amount of experience as lawyers, particularly working in the payments industry, and they do a lot of work around Match. I'm going to pick their brains to learn what you can do if you find yourself on the Match list. So guys, thanks for joining today.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you very much, David. It's good to be here.
Perfect. So let's just jump in. What is Match? It doesn't sound bad. What is it?
Well, MATCH is actually an acronym for Member Assist to Control High Risk. And just so nobody gets confused, in the context of that acronym, a member is a bank. That's it. And since banks have these contracts with card brands, Visa, MasterCard, whatever, to get the privilege of offering their cards to their customers or processing sales using those cards, they have to agree to abide by these rules. And there's like 14 different violations, possible violations, and it's in the card brand rule. So if they get the since the banks are ultimately going to be held responsible for anything that happens, if they even get a whiff of the fact that you may be doing something wrong, or even if they just don't understand you, they're going to terminate your merchant account, terminate your processing, and put you on this list, which it doesn't allow you to take credit cards for the next 5 years. And that at which time you'll purge off automatically, but by then the damage is done.
5 years without payment processing is like 5 minutes without oxygen to a human. Like, you can't live with that.
Yeah, yep. It's an awful experience, and I see how awful it can be. I get new examples daily.
I believe it. And I want to say, like, my intent with this podcast episode, it's obviously not to help the bad actors who run bad businesses with poor service. It's to help the good guys that are unfairly caught on Match. And you guys know there's two sides to every story. I'll even tell you like a quick one that I ran into. So there's only one time ever in all of my experience where a merchant called me and they straight up owned, hey, I was on Match because we weren't doing refunds quickly enough and it was my fault. I'm like, wow. Like, I mean, at least you're owning it. But I think a lot of the time people are on Match for a reason. But I had another client. He's one of the nicest guys ever. I know this guy personally because he's a client. And he got put on Match by one of the big processors. And I know the details. It was like insanely, egregiously unfair. Like wild. He'd only processed for like a week. And he got a chargeback within the week. And they terminated him and put him on Match. It was crazy. So I guess this is a very long-winded way of getting to my question. How often do good, clean merchants get put on Match?
I'm sorry, how often do what merchant? How'd you characterize a merchant?
Do good, clean, well-intentioned merchants get put on Match?
Oh, that's like the majority of the placements, to be honest with you.
All the time, David.
It's just, and I'm actually gonna kind of clarify a comment you made earlier. The match list is not a list of merchants that processors don't want to work with. They're just so afraid of getting on MasterCard's bad side that they're doing it out of necessity, and they're so big that they know that they can take this step with you, and chances are you're not going to be able to fight it, and they're okay because they think they're okay because they've met what MasterCard calls a reasonable belief standard, which is like, what does that mean? It's totally subjective, but they I've made this comment in another podcast, but they have thousands of merchants, processing with them. What's one? And they're going to always err on the side of of shutting you down as opposed to, But if the card brands were involved, everybody likes to process. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody wants to be flexible, but the card brands create an environment where it's just not possible. But to answer your question again, good, bad, it really doesn't seem to matter. Everybody's at risk.
Can I give an example
Okay,
of this, David? Do you mind? Because it's a great question, right? So many of them, as Bryce was just explaining, are innocent actors, right? Just merchants trying to make a living. I'll give you one case example, and Bryce can go into detail on these. Identity theft. We have clients all the time who call us because they find out they're on match list, so they've been prohibited from processing for the next 5 years because they were victims of identity theft.
Wow.
So they're victimized not only once because of their identity being stolen and used, but then because of that victimization, they are also victimized a second time, thrown on this prohibition list. And I want Bryce to explain what sometimes the responses we get from these processors or banks, where they're not always willing to help out.
Well, no, I mean, yeah, your data has been stolen, and they've used your data to apply for a merchant account. So they know that the merchant is the victim here. They know what happened, but all that data, all that personal data, is now tainted, and it ends up on the match list. So other people don't, under the auspices of oh well, somebody else could try that data again, which we all know is the chances of that happening more than once are slim to none. But I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
No, it's all right.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I got it back. Identity theft. So they know what's happening, but they're like, nah, can't help you. Can't help you at all. Because, even though we're like, but that these people were victimized. Now you're gonna victimize them again? Like, they already got their data stolen. Now you're gonna put them out of business? Like, where's the logic in that? But again, it's the environment that the credit cards have created, and they know that, but they just don't really care because they don't have to, I guess.
So I've been staring at this sentence on my monitor. I want to ask this question. You're not going to like it because there's no good answer, I have a feeling. The question is, where are the checks and the balances to have some level of fairness?
There are none. Get a lawyer. Because
Wow.
if even if they don't understand something, like it just doesn't make sense to them. They're just going to err on the side of caution for them because they're only interested in protecting themselves. There's just no way around it.
Wow.
They know, David. I'm so sorry. If I can add to that just a little bit, because Bryce is correct. There are no checks and balances. And again, not all processors are bad. Not all acquiring banks are bad. But they do have a vested interest in their relationship with Visa and MasterCard under the card brand rules. That's what they care about. They want to keep their relationship with the banks.
It's their bread and butter.
It's their bread and butter. So, as Bryce was pointing out, what ends up happening is they do this, and because I think ultimately they know 99% of merchants cannot afford to protect themselves, cannot afford even really to do matchless removal services. As affordable as Global Legal is in those services, it's still expensive. And most merchants, as you know, probably can't afford that. And so these banks, these processors, unfortunately, are able to do this really without many repercussions.
Yeah, I mean, and even hiring a lawyer is not a guarantee, because I see lawyers in our line of work all the time. They're like, oh, I do business litigation. How hard can payment processing be? Very hard, very hard. And they have no idea what they walked into. And here we don't want to sue. We don't want to charge our clients to spend the money to sue. So we always try to get them to respond to us and just explain What happened? They won't even give you notice.
That was my next question. Because a lot of times merchants contact me and they get declined because they're on Match, and they're like, what's Match? So, and then they come back, sorry, Bryce, and they come back and they say, who put me there? Is it even possible for them to find out who put them on there?
Well, we found a back channel, and you should share this with all of your viewers, that if you are told you are on Match, and yeah, you're not going to get any information about it at all. They're not even going to tell you. They're just going to like wait there and for you to find out. But email matchbusinessowner at mastercard.com. It has to be the merchant. It cannot be anybody else but the merchant, or they will not respond. But if you write them, give them some information, general information about your business. Say, hey, I've been told I'm on Match. Can you verify? Within 24 hours, they will tell you the bank, they will tell you the date of the placement, and they will tell you the violation. And that's something that we have all of our clients do, like right away. It's just a quick and easy way. And because before we knew this email existed, we would just write letters like till we were blue in the face.
It would take weeks,
yeah,
sometimes weeks, if not months, to find out.
Well, you got to remember too. You got to realize that these guys have no incentive to talk to us at all. The only incentive, and I'm kind of proud of myself because I think we've got quite a reputation. We will sue these guys, and we often deal with the same players on a pretty regular basis, so we're known. And I think that's the only reason that they actually even respond to us at all, because they know us, they know what we're capable of. But a regular merchant just had their revenue cut off, they're not going to make a move. So why would a bank who's again trying to protect itself like respond to a merchant when they don't have to? Because the relationship is over. They're holding the reserve funds until like whatever chargeback period applies that that allows them to hold that money. But why would they bid against themselves? There are some cases where we're just like, the amicable route doesn't work, so we're going to have to file a lawsuit. Because the other thing, and I'll just close with this, the hardest part of our cases is just getting them to respond. Like our clients call us up or email us and be like, hey, can I get a status? Can I get a status? Can I get a status? And I tell them every time, this is just the way it is. That they are slow about everything. They're slow and obstructive. It's hard to believe that it's not intentional, but there's just no incentive, and they are absolutely certain that they've done the right thing, and they don't want to hear it. They don't hear otherwise.
This is interesting in a terrifying way, because I can see that this could, I don't want to be like overly dramatic. There's things that car accidents are worth, health issues are worse, but you could effectively ruin somebody's life over this. You could shut down their business. They can't make their mortgage payment. They can't open another business. Like this can be serious.
I want you to know, David, that's not an exaggeration at all. I talk to people every single day who are either losing their business or they're saying, hey, Jeremy, we're 2 or 3 weeks away from going out of business. Because as Bryce was pointing out, they've been terminated. If they're calling us, they've likely already been terminated, and which means the money is not coming in. And connected to all this, many merchants have funds that are being held in association with this match list placement, sometimes hundreds of thousands of dollars. So they can't pay their employees, they can't fulfill their orders, and it just creates a massive, massive domino effect.
Oh yeah, and I think we touched on this earlier, but after COVID, like nobody takes checks anymore. Nobody takes cash anymore. It is an online market. It is credit cards, and that's just the way it is now. And I almost think that we're here in the United States, that there should be like a caveat of the Constitution that like the right to take credit cards is like part of the right of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, because you're not getting anywhere as a business unless you can take credit cards. That's just the fact of life. And they cut them all off.
It's a form of debanking.
They cut them all off. I mean, MasterCard, Visa, American Express, you got nowhere. Discover, I haven't seen too many Discovers, but that's it. You got nowhere else to go. So I mean, it's a bad situation.
This doesn't sound positive. So, like, okay, let's say it happens and someone realizes like this is serious, it's bad. I'm going to reach out to you guys. Listen, I'm just bringing hard questions today because this is a hard topic. Somebody's like, look, I've got to get this fixed. What is the realistic time frame in resolving this?
Let me start, Bryce. I'll start off because I have this conversation every day, David, with clients. That's the number 2 question. The number 1 question typically is how much is it going to cost? The second question is how long is this going to take? Generally speaking, we tell our clients 3 to 5 months for resolution on these, but the reality is these can stretch out much longer. We've seen these go 6, 7, 8, 9 months, over a year. It's not common that they're going that long, but these can really stretch out. Now, on the other hand, from time to time, as rare as it is, we do have some match situations that we've been able to resolve within a month, month and a half. So it can happen. It's just that we don't like our clients to expect that because it is not the norm.
Yeah, it really does depend on the violation, and like I said, there are 14, but really only 6 or 7 show up with any regularity. Excessive chargebacks. If you want to stay off the match list, you have to police your credit cards. If you in 1 month your MasterCard chargebacks exceed 1% of your total chargebacks for the month and $5,000 matched, and it's those are really difficult because the numbers are the numbers. So all you can really do is try to mess with their calculations, and or dispute their calculations. But the numbers are the numbers. Identity theft that we discussed, it's your data's been compromised. I mean, your Social Security has been compromised. What do you do with that? But the ones that we can work with are like the frauds, and fraud is just high chargebacks, non-MasterCard. So that the excessive chargeback rule doesn't apply. What, violation of standards?
Yep.
Fraud, laundering.
Transaction laundering. Is a big one.
Because some of these violations, you're like violation standards. What does that mean? I don't know. It can mean anything. They can make it anything. Like I had a question about your preamble. Like your merchant got matched for not refunding in a timely manner. What was the violation? I don't. There isn't a you need to refund faster violation in the card brand. So I have to wonder, when you do go to fight these, or when you want to acquire as a merchant, you got to make sure that you let it's kind of like dealing with the cops. They're like, you know how fast you were going. It's just like, you tell me what I did and why. Don't ever go in assuming that you know exactly what happened on that side. So that's one thing you got to do.
That's one of the things I can actually, I think, add something to this discussion from like working on the processing side. Let me tell you, merchants breach on chargeback thresholds all the time. Now, it doesn't happen all the time. Like a good merchant, so I had a merchant who, I don't remember who they were, but I remember what they did. They just were ducks in a shooting gallery that had never had chargeback problems before. And some fraudsters on some forum realized they weren't scrubbing fraud as they should have, and they got hit. So they spiked and breached and stuff. And then again, I've had other merchants who are problem merchants, to be honest, and they run chargebacks for too long. I have never, ever had a merchant terminated or put on match, ever. So my question for you is, well, it's a question, maybe it's more of a statement. How is it fair that one person can be terminated for a couple chargebacks and breaching, and other guys go way over?
Luck of the draw, man.
Well, yeah.
It really is so arbitrary because different banks have different risk departments. It comes down to, okay, this is probably not a great example, but we had a couple cases with some sex dolls, okay, and all shapes and sizes, and I'm not endorsing that, but and I'm not judging it either, but somebody would say that doll looks like a kid, and so we're gonna shut you down completely. Then they'll send me the photo. It doesn't look like a kid. It doesn't look like a kid at all. But to the person making the decision, it's completely subjective. Like, I got to find out
Right.
who it was that made this determination, and you're never gonna find that out. I mean, I'm still waiting for somebody to come to me with enough reserves to actually like file a lawsuit and make them explain why they think. I mean, what if the person is just a total prude and doesn't like sex dolls at all? Doesn't even like the concept, and they just have some vendetta. And I understand that's kind of like going to the extreme of the example, but it doesn't mean that it doesn't happen.
Totally. And there's this discretionary, unreasonably too much discretion to it. One of the things I'm not understanding, so I had originally written the question, is the best route to work with a processor who put you on it or with MasterCard directly? But in your example, who are you going after to fix this?
First we start with the processor, but the bank had to order the hit. I guess I'll put it that way. The bank is the only one who contracts with the card brands. The card brands
Right.
allow the bank to delegate some of its duties to third parties, but the bank is still responsible for everything that happens. So we will, like with the PayPals, we'll start direct with PayPal, but if they start jerking us around, then we just jump to Wells Fargo or PNC, who are now PNC and Deutsche Bank are for Stripe. You go right to them and you just try to shake the tree a little bit, trying to contact MasterCard other than emailing that email that I said before, the total waste of time. They will tell you that, I mean, they got sick of me writing them for a while, but they will tell you, we're just a custodian of the list. We don't have any information about what is going on there. If the bank submits a recommendation that you be removed, then we'll remove you. No questions asked. But the bank is the one who has to make the call.
That email that Bryce referred to earlier, they will literally say in that email, when they respond back to the merchant, they will tell you, basically,
go
here's your information, leave us alone.
Yeah.
We can't help
Right.
you. You have to go to the entity that placed you on the list. That's the only entity that can take you off the list.
Yeah, but that email is the only way they'll help at all.
Yeah.
And it's just telling
Wow.
you, giving you an idea, but they won't give you the specifics because they don't know.
Yeah.
They're just a custodian.
David, can I touch on something you had asked in this question a little bit earlier? You mentioned why, because you said you see merchants all the time, going above 1% and in essence having excessive chargebacks, and yet you haven't matched anybody. It goes back to what we talked about in our previous podcast. By the way, I'm going to say a quick little plug. We interviewed David on our podcast, the Payments Experts Podcast. Please go check that out. It was a great conversation.
Give them the website.
Talking about surcharge and dual pricing, et cetera, bringing on merchants. That's over at globallegallawfirm.com. But David, it comes down to, I think, what you do for your clients, your merchants, is that you care. Right? You actually want a relationship with your merchants. You want a relationship with your clients. That's why you call them and say, hey, we need to talk. What's going on with your chargebacks? As opposed to some of these larger entities, I'll just pick on Fiserv First Data, they don't ask any questions. They're just going to throw you on the list. They won't even tell you they did. You'll find out 2 months later or when your account gets terminated.
Yeah, they're doing so much volume, they don't have to care about you.
So can I ask one question? By the way, that was super helpful, guys. I really appreciate that. So one of the things I'm trying to play devil's advocate for the processor. You said that they really have to care about the relationship with the card networks. That is fair. What is the risk to the processor to knowingly onboard a merchant that's on Match?
Well, first off, if MasterCard, if MasterCard gets the sense that, well, if you don't match somebody for a violation and then down the road they violate again, you're going to get nailed by MasterCard for not getting rid of them the first time. So there is that. Can you ask your question again?
Yeah, I want to know what the risk to the processor is if they onboard a merchant on Match.
Okay, so fines will be assessed by MasterCard to the bank. The bank will take the money from the processor. The processor is supposed to get the money from the merchant. Merchant doesn't have the money. Processor gets stuck. But that's really about it. They just have to protect their relationship with the bank. 'Cause that is, what the processor does is going to affect the bank, which is going to affect the bank's relationship with the card brands. So when you have that kind of, hammer hanging over your head, you're going to err on the side of caution and pull the trigger and terminate.
A head of risk did tell me once that, but I didn't remember it until you said that. It was something like if there were previous uncollected fines from this merchant, but you onboard them, good news, those fines are now yours. Is that maybe that?
Yeah, and I have yet to understand or get an explanation as to how these fines are assessed. They can be anywhere from like 25 grand to $500,000, and there'll be no explanation. Or and actually, I'm going to raise this one too. When you're told you're getting fined by your bank or your processor, ask them for it's called a BRAM. I can't remember what the acronym
BRAM
is.
violation.
Business risk and mitigation or something.
Ask them to show you the letter. Ask them to confirm that you're the one who. I mean, I had one where it turned out that the bank had actually broken the rules and was hanging it on the merchant. So and trying to get money from the merchant. And on top of that, the bank already has access to your bank account. So I'm gonna make another crazy little statement here, a recommendation. If you get termed for a match, the first thing you need to do is tell your bank, don't let this bank take any money from me. Just prohibit them. You can settle up with them later, but they're gonna do what's best for them. And if you don't do that right away, you're gonna turn around and they're just gonna wipe out your account. They're gonna take all the money they think they're due, and then good luck getting it back. Even if you hire a lawyer and that lawyer goes to bat for you, you have a successful outcome, it's still going to be a nightmare getting the money. Once the money's gone, it's really hard to get it back, but at least while you have it, you have leverage.
Well, and if I can add on to that as well, there's that old saying, right? 90% of the law is possession, right? And that's very true in the sense that, Bryce, you said they're going to take all the money that's theirs.
They think is theirs.
They think is theirs. And furthermore, they're going to take all the money that might be at risk because of potential, not actual chargebacks, but maybe some chargebacks might come. So we're going to hold all that money too. I mean, it's an incredible problem.
And like, so your average ticket price, like your average sale, let's say is like $50. We've seen processors holding reserve funds as high as like $1 million, and you're like, why do you need this much money when the average ticket price is $50? And there's a Visa rule that says that the amount of the reserve has to be directly related to
reasonably related
to the amount of risk involved. But nobody ever follows that rule.
I didn't know that was a rule. That sounds like a good rule to be aware of.
Yeah, Visa Rule 6, and I throw it at people all the time.
I will tell you, as a business owner, as a small business owner, there are times when it's like, I just don't know if I need to talk to a lawyer for this. If there's one thing this conversation has really convinced me of, take Match seriously. This is one time that you probably promptly should talk to a lawyer. And I'm going to ask you guys a question. You're not on the hot seat for it, but a lot of small and mid-sized business owners won't know. Are you able to give people any idea of what the rough cost might be to fight this out? Like, I know it's going to be a big range because it could go short, it could go long, but can you give people any idea what they're looking at?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, David, that you asked that. It's a great question, and I'm asked this almost every day. The good news is we're able to give a pretty solid approximation because we do so much of this work. We've been doing this for years now, so we've kind of nailed down the price point.
We also have contacts to the people that will regularly speak.
Right.
To us. Like I'm talking to somebody from American Express that deals with me regularly, and she's very responsive. I know that I'm lucky. That she even talks to me.
Yeah.
I mean, merchants aren't going to be able to do that.
Yeah, Bryce has a call in literally Bryce, about 7 minutes from now, speaking to a large entity we've had a great relationship with for a few years now.
Yeah, but those are contacts that we had to build over time, and that's the kind of angle that an attorney can get you. They can get your foot in the door, because we're also approaching or trying to approach their legal department. Merchants are just going to get some customer service 9 to 5 guy with no power at all.
Yeah. So we deal
Right.
directly with their general counsel office. So David, just quickly to answer your question, anywhere between $5,000 to $7,000 typically is what your probably 95% of our matchless clients fall into that window. Now, of course, that's speaking very generally, and as Bryce pointed out, it matters what the reason code is. It matters who's on the other end. How hard are they going to fight? How obstinate are they going to be? What are the circumstances? So they can cost more, certainly, sometimes a lot more, especially if there's arbitration or litigation involved. But generally speaking, the bulk of the match list removal work we do, you're going to be in that $5,000 to $7,000 range.
And I just want to interject one more thing. It's cool that we can get to the legal department, but I have no illusions about what's going on. Even the lawyers are just mouthpieces for Risk, and nobody gets to talk to Risk, and nobody knows who they are, and nobody knows what they do or why they do, and you just have to hope and pray. You're just trying to maximize your chances of whatever argument you're trying to make actually reaches Risk, and that just seems to be better served going through the legal department. But, most people just can't get there on their own.
Well, I'll tell you this. I've learned in my personal life that if you're going to hire a lawyer, don't go to the mall to the most convenient lawyer because it's 5 minutes away. Go to the expert that actually knows what they're doing. And clearly you guys are very knowledgeable about Match and what to do. Can you tell people, because I know we have to wrap this up, a little bit about your firm and how they can get in touch with you?
Absolutely. And first and foremost, David, it was a real pleasure being on your podcast. Greatly appreciate the invitation. But this is a payments litigation law firm. So for the past 16 years, since 2008, all this firm does is law related to credit card processing, digital transactions. It's very niche. It's very specialized. And Bryce Vandermoor, who you saw there, who we're talking to today, he does this work every single day. Every single day he's working on matchless matters. He's litigating matchless matters. He's in arbitration over matchless matters. So it is something that expertise, it doesn't come out of nowhere, right? It comes from years and years of doing this type of work. And that's what Global Legal Law Firm does. You can find us at globallegallawfirm.com. You can email us, please, at info@attorneygl.com. Again, that's info@attorneygl.com. We'd be happy to speak with you, whether it's match list, reserve fund issues, really anything related to credit card processing in the payment space.
Can I make one statement right now, just real quick? I want everybody to understand, and they're probably going to laugh at this, but my goal is to never have a match case again. Like I become such a pain in the butt to MasterCard that they're like, hey, maybe we need to revamp these rules that have been unchanged for decades. It's just like, and that is a one size fit all because it's just disgusting. Like the inequity and the arbitrary actions that affect people's lives. And I don't think that anybody really cares about that. And so, the day that I have to shut down my match practice, and I'm sure, people will be like, oh yeah, whatever. But I just get angry every day, every single day about this stuff. And my goal is to get rid of it. Yeah, my goal is to get rid of it.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys. This was not like a happy topic, but I'll tell you, I learned a lot. And anybody that's in the problem today by watching this will be empowered. So please reach out to Global Legal. I'm hoping they can help you. And guys, that was a lot of info. Thanks for joining today.
David, I could go for hours. So if you guys want to talk again and elaborate on anything I've talked about today, I'm more than happy to get the word out, because people need to know that this is happening.
Yeah. And believe me, we're just getting warmed up, David.
Yeah, no doubt.
We could absolutely talk
doubt.
about this
No
for
doubt.
days.
No doubt.
The inequity out there. But David, it's a real pleasure. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast.
Thank you, guys.